work in person in Virginia, DC area in United States. However, I do have clients all over the world in different countries, different states. And I've been coaching for quite a few years now, something that started off as actually accident, a happy accident, and had become an absolute passion that I managed to turn into a successful business. And very proud to say there's quite a few happy clients that have been able to transform their lives with my help, with my guidance. So that truly warms my heart. And I believe that for every person to have a fulfilling, truly fulfilling, healthy relationship should be an ultimate goal in life. And unfortunately, because we don't really learn the proper skill set for relationships, nobody teaches us in school. Childhood, oftentimes, environment is questionable. So this is essentially what I'm trying to do, just to truly equip people with the skill set and provide the safe space to become the best partner possible and create relationship that would just last a lifetime and bring happiness. And as far as where you can find me, so the website is lovedandfulfilled.com. I truly believe everybody desires to be loved and fulfilled and deserves to be loved and fulfilled. So lovedandfulfilled.com is the best way to get in touch with me and book a complimentary call.
So let me ask you then, when it comes to the emotional connection between two people in a relationship, what do you think are then maybe some of the obstacles that people today are facing?
I would say one of the biggest obstacles is the lack of knowing oneself. So people come into relationship, they oftentimes very much focused on what they can get, what they can experience externally from another person. But most of the time, and I see this in my coaching practice all the time, they don't know who they are. They don't know their own needs. They don't understand how to express their own needs properly. But if you are not deeply connected to your own sense of self, how would you be able to connect to another person? Because that is the true bridge. So I would say the biggest obstacle is really not having done enough of work of understanding yourself. And I'm talking about patterns, possible trauma that you had experienced, understanding how you react in difficult situations. You know, conflict is inevitable in a relationship, right? There is no such thing as a relationship without conflict. So, knowing yourself is the priority number one, and then getting to know somebody else and figuring out how to collaborate to configure that unit.
Is that from, when you say knowing yourself, is that from like an emotional baseline perspective or is that something else?
I would say it's more of a wholesome perspective, not just emotional perspective. Emotional is a big aspect of that. I truly believe because I'll give you a personal example. When I got married the first time, um, I truly, it's only now in retrospect, I know it. Okay. I'm very smart now when I'm 47 after two divorces. But back then, when I was 23, looking back, I didn't know who I was truly. I didn't know how to be a good partner. And most importantly, when it came to emotional aspect, every time when some kind of emotionally difficult situation came up, I had no capacity to handle it. So I avoided every difficult conversation I could, swept things under the rug until could not contain it anymore and end up just exploding, lashing out, things like that. So absolutely from emotional aspect.
When I look back at some of the relationships I went through, that's something that I struggled with when it came to understanding what my partner was going through because I try to be someone that is very head centered. And I think I was dating women who were very heart centered, which is natural, right? So a lot of men, we're problem solvers. A lot of women, they're sympathy and empathy and so on. But unfortunately, they would lash out to your point, right? And sometimes I'll sit back, Irina, and I'd be like, okay, why did that happen? I'm trying to figure it out and I'm trying to understand. But then one thing I realized was where I was emotionally was different than where my partner was emotionally. And that's why we were butting heads. And when I was trying to help bring her up, there was conflict because I felt like she was bringing me down. Is that what you see as well between men and women in this case when it comes to the difference in how we approach relationships from an emotional level?
Absolutely, 100%. It's just we, instead of looking at the unit of a man and a woman as a complementary dynamic, oftentimes I see women expecting men to act like women, men expecting women to act like men. And it's not necessarily intentional. It's because we are not taught the differences. So what do? We assume that the other person perceives things the way we do, but it's very different. So if we go in, like you're saying, men are more head centered and women are more heart centered, but that's how it's supposed to be. And that's the beautiful part about it. But the challenge comes in when a woman kind of runs wild with her own emotions, and a man who is supposed to be a little bit more rational and logical and create that structure, that frame for her, fails to kind of give her that structure so her emotions don't go completely out of control, because it's quite possible for us women to for that to happen. And then we are not unable to kind of enhance each other's strength and capabilities, and instead we turn into enemies. So instead of going together against a challenge, we go against each other. So knowing the difference between how men process emotions and how women process emotions, and what each can do for each other to stay as regulated as possible, because I truly believe at this point of my personal life and coaching life, that is the responsibility number one of each partner, to know how to regulate yourself and also not allow the other person to take advantage of the other one by lashing out or unloading, unpacking without making an effort to regulate. And I see that all the time. So being responsible for the emotions. We're all adults. We're not kids anymore, even though we may still carry trauma from childhood. That is not an excuse. That is not an excuse to for some kind of shitty behavior. Like, you gotta take responsibility for your emotions.
What about those who are saying that, well, Irina, well, Terrain, he or she has to meet me where I am, and where I am is right here, and I will not step one step further.
Oh, that's the type of people that should stay single. I'm sorry, if you're not able to be ready to constantly calibrate, like, it can be different. The first couple of months are going to be different from when you are about 6 months into your relationship. 10 years into relationship is going to be different. So be ready to constantly be growing, evolving, and changing. It's not going to be straight line from A to B. It's just, it's not how life works. It's not how we humans are having our human experience. So if somebody is unable to kind of go with the flow of the unit, they should not be in the unit. Then stay single.
So it's not I am the table, it's we are the table.
Yes. Yeah, it's not I am the table.
I
Yeah.
hear that like a lot. Like people say, especially online, right? They'll say, well, I am the table because it's me. I'm the prize, I'm the table, I'm the everything. Why do I need to change? Because if he or she is insert shaming tactic, if he's man enough, if she's woman enough, they'll be able to accept me. Because if you can't accept me at my worst, you don't get me at my best.
I think you're bringing up a very valid point here, Terrain. Like, yes, we should absolutely have the capacity and the heart to accept our partners and their worst, okay? Because there are ups and downs and ebbs and flows. However, um, are they at their worst just because they're tired or they're having a bad day or they're going through something and they need the safe space, they need an extra support to go through that? Or are they are at their worst because they are choosing to be lazy about something, they're choosing not to have discipline, they're choosing not to understand what the emotional regulation is and how to show up in the relationship emotionally responsibly? That's different.
Is it a choice?
Yes, it's always a choice.
I asked that, and I agree. I asked that because of choice, because I'll give you an example. There's someone, and I apologize because I know you watch my show, so I apologize. So don't blow up my car, blow up my house, please, I beg you. There's someone I used to date, and I remember the first time we went on a date, and we're at this restaurant, and the date was over, and I was about to pay. And I looked at her, and I thought she was having a panic attack. I was like, "Are you all right?" She's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna pay." She's like, "It's okay." I'm like, "Calm down, relax. I invited you out. I planned dinner. I'll pay." And as I'm paying, I look at her a second time, and kid you not, I could have swore she was sweating. She was so
Oh,
not used to letting go of control. She
oh,
was so used to not being the one that comes up with everything. So just the fact that someone was paying for her, this me in this case, she felt uneasy because she was not used to it. So later on, I spoke to her about it, and she said that she was used to dating people who I guess weren't able to pay, so she had to pick up the slack.
mhm,
But because it changed now, she started to feel like those people that she used to pay for, so she felt inadequate.
okay.
So I share that story because when it comes to two people trying to meet each other where we are, sometimes they're so far apart that something has to trigger it. Do you think maybe part of that is missing where some people aren't able to see that they're so far apart because by the time a situation comes up to show the real version of themselves, maybe they're too deep into their feelings, emotions, or even the relationship?
I think it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are not taught to be comfortable with the discomfort. So especially when it comes to connecting with people, and I'm not even talking just about romantic relationship, friendships, social connections. It is in like I'm not from here originally, and it is in my observation. What's happening is there is a lot of tiptoeing around somebody else's feelings here. A lot of people prefer not to say something, and I'm not saying being mean, but I'm saying just being truthful, you know? It's like if you're inviting me to the party terrain, right? I like you, but the party is going to be big. I'm a huge introvert. I'm too tired, and I would much rather maybe go just grab lunch with you together instead of going to the party. I'm going to tell you, it's like, hey, thank you for the invitation, but it's not my crowd. You enjoy yourself. Can we grab lunch the next day, right? I will enjoy our one-on-one time. It's just my preference. Is that okay with you? Instead of going, oh, I'm too busy. I have plans, right? So people will try to kind of sugarcoat things because they're afraid, quote unquote, to hurt somebody's feelings, when in reality, it's not about hurting somebody's feelings. It's about being uncomfortable with somebody else's emotional reaction. We are not taught to kind of welcome the triggers and the discomfort because that is where the lessons are. That is where the growth is. That is how we can evolve and become better versions of ourselves. So, and because of the constantly like trying to avoid discomfort, many times people don't even get it an opportunity to get closer. As you're saying, they're too far apart. So they can't get closer because they're avoiding the discomfort. But discomfort is an invitation into looking why the discomfort is even there.
So they're making a choice to either be either discomfort where I'm alone or the discomfort where I have to relinquish some control, be vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely. There is a lot of people who will say, I'm so much better off being single. That's a lie. It's familiar, it's falsely safer, but it's not happier, it's not more fulfilling, it's not better. It's because it's scary to go and not be single. Every time we interact with another human, we risk. It's a risk. Human interaction is a risk, and it requires some courage to take a risk.
The dating scape these days seems to be something that a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people have this toxic view. Men are like this, women are like this, and they don't realize that they're complaining about the same thing, even though they're complaining separately from each other. Why are men and women having such a difficult time understanding the dynamics of a relationship and trying to get out of it what they actually want, which is whatever it could be?
Oof, that's $1 million question. Um, I think it kind of is the lack of desire to take responsibility. Because if you think about it, people complain, like in my coaching practice, I get a man and they complain about women. I get a woman and they complain about men. And then I ask them a question, I'm like, what have you individually done to contribute to making a dating world a better place? They look at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, but just think about it. Like if each single person have done some kind of soul searching and understood, for instance, that when you come with kindness, sense of gratitude, with open heart, with certain amount of skills into the dating space. Imagine if every single person had done a little bit of work to show up with more positive approach to it, it would be a better place, no? Don't you think? Because individually we would contribute to a more, a kinder, a more compassionate dating world. But people are too much kind of for themselves. So it's easier to blame versus take responsibility. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to take responsibility and go, you know what? I'm the one who is the common denominator, just like I was the common denominator in my 2 divorces. And it took me a little time to look in the mirror and say, you know what? You contributed to it. It wasn't easy. But once you do it, you realize that this is where the power is. This is where the control is. You can only control what's in here. You can't control anything around it. But another thing is that I think a lot of people nowadays are addicted to negativity, to toxicity. And because with the dating apps and the current landscape, the current just mentality in dating world, it's created this sense of disposability. It's like the grass is greener on the other side. And that's why we have so much ghosting and so many people hide behind the screens or just simply fall out of conversation, mid-sentence and never or block somebody. And I hear this all the time. Lack of responsibility.
Could part of the problem be choice, since you mentioned the dating apps?
I think it's good to have choices, it's good to have options, but it's like if you give a 12-year-old a sports car and like, hey, have fun with it, they're gonna cause some havoc, right? They're probably gonna crash the car, maybe die, who knows, maybe run over somebody, right? It's like if you give people who do not possess proper discerning skills, proper communication skills, who don't know how to respect the other by not disappearing out of the conversation, but having the decency and the respect to go, hey, thank you for the conversation, Terrain. I've enjoyed the text exchange, but I'm just not feeling the connection with you. I wish you all the best. Takes 2 seconds to type that. But what do most people do? They ghost, they disappear, they block because it's the easiest way out, right? So when you give people that many options, you create an illusion that it's like ongoing and never ending, conveyor of options there. And you don't hold them accountable, therefore they can hide behind the screens, then it becomes toxic. So it's not necessarily the choice that people have. I think choice is wonderful, options are wonderful, but it's inability to actually utilize the choice and the options in a healthy way and being a good human along the way.
I see what you mean. Like if I give the example of food, for example, right? Like There's a point in time where way back in the day that we ate a lot of vegetables was we would grow our own crop, but now we have the choice to have the candy, to have the burgers, to have the vegetables, to have something else. So the choice isn't the problem. It's just what are you doing with the choice? Are you making healthy choices or unhealthy choices? I think would that be accurate in what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, it's, I mean, with humans, we're, at our basic level, we always will lean towards the pleasure and the comfort and away from discomfort and pain, right? So whenever sin is presented to us and it's very easily accessible and available, it's a human nature to reach for that. So this is why the skills and the discipline, self-discipline is really critical.
If the discipline is a concern, because it is a concern in a number of people in many different ways these days, right? From the choices we make, the partners that we lay down with, even the jobs that we have, right? Like there's some choices where like, oh, I shouldn't have been with that person or gone down with whomever at that point. With choice not being a problem now, because I agree with you that choice isn't a problem because we have so many choices from the dating apps to in person to being hooked up by our colleague or a family member. If choice isn't the problem, how can then someone understand when they're making healthy choices in their life when it comes to dating?
That's a loaded question. I think it's something that really should ideally start from early age, where we're taught to not strive toward an instant gratification, but actually exercise some discipline. But I don't think in the United States it's the case. I mean, I came from a very different environment, so maybe it is a little bit easier for me with the discipline. I can see why it would be more difficult here. Um, However, the only solution I can come up with really, Rain, is like there should be some kind of mandatory course, school to go through before anybody gets in a relationship so people can actually learn some discipline and some skills to essentially benefit them in their life. Because everybody's talking about, just think about it, everybody's talking about, oh, I want a relationship, I want to get a relationship. Everybody's very eager to just change that relationship status. Not many people go, oh, I want a relationship that I can be happy in, I can be fulfilled in, I can sustain it, I know how to navigate. Like, we don't really think past that initial reward that most of us want to get, and that requires work. It's like if you, let's say, like I live next to the town center, there's this huge building with this company. If I walk into the building and I go, I know you guys are good company, I want to work for you, right? And I walk in, I have no skills whatsoever to work in that company, but I'm like, hire me because I want to work here. That's what people do with the relationship. They've got no skills, they've got no proper understanding, and there's like, hire me. I want to be in a relationship.
That reminds
Okay.
me.
Probably not gonna go well. This is not a very popular opinion. People don't like it, but it's worth the work. This is what I always try to tell people. It's like it's worth a little bit of time of discomfort and work and learning so you actually can be in a relationship that you can sustain, that you can navigate, when to walk away, because some relationship do have an expiration date and it's okay. But you have the emotional resilience, you have the skills to walk away peacefully, right? All of that is very much needed to know before you get into a relationship.
It reminds me of that joke where there was a store, this is make believe now, where single people would go and says, "Okay, here's your pick of husbands," right? For women, there's one story you can find a mate. For men, there's another story you can find a partner, right? First floor said that this is the type of guy you like, but on the second floor, there's another type. So
Yeah.
women went on the second floor. Then the second floor said there's another type, and women went to the third floor, and then there's another type. When they got to the fourth floor, there was nothing but a precipice. So all these women were falling off the end, right?
Yeah.
And it's to your point where it's like how when we're searching for something, are we willing to do the work? Meaning that treat it like a driver's license. You have your G1, G2, and your G. You need to take 3 tests to be able to get married. And if you fail, that's okay. There's no shame. But what I think sometimes is happening, and I have this perspective of working with women, and you have the perspective of working with men, is that when you and I talk, Irina, we hear the same complaints, but I don't think they're aware of it.
You mean men are not aware that women are complaining about the same thing and
That
vice
men and
versa?
that single men and women are complaining about the same thing. I don't think they're aware.
I think self-awareness is a little challenging thing to come about in general. So, and this is why when we started chatting today, and I said that that individual responsibility of getting to know yourself before you, try to actually get into a relationship, um, that's the self-awareness. That is what is super critical. And as far as being complain about the same thing, I think those who prefer some kind of quick fix, they will always complain. Those who know that effort brings a reward and a little bit of discipline, a little bit of learning can actually get them there, you hardly ever hear those complain. But it is about shifting the blame oftentimes. But it is the same complaint, right? It just the gender changes. I
Why do
always
you
hear
think
one of the biggest things I hear is like people ask me, where do I meet people? And there are no available women or men that I'm attracted to. I love the question, where do I meet people? I usually say, you walk out of your door and you meet people. Full
Irina,
stop.
everyone outside is ugly. Didn't you know that?
Yes, everybody's ugly, not your type. And we can come up with 200 million reasons why it doesn't work, right? But you just need one person. But in order to find that one person, you have to become somebody to be able to discern and to be able to attract that person. So many people talk about what they can get out of the relationship. Nobody's talking about what they can contribute and what they can bring to the relationship, like openly. If we sit down on a date and like, this is what I can contribute. Typically, it's like, this is what I'm looking for. Getting versus contributing.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think people talk more about what they can get out of a person instead of what they can pour into that person?
I think it's just local culture.
Local
And
as in countrywide or
local
citywide?
as in Western culture. Um, the stores are open 24/7. The easy access to a lot of things, the comforts, it's people, a lot of people don't go through hardship over some basic needs. So there is a certain expectation, I would say, that I want things uh, easily. It's like, give you example, like we had a heat wave here and everybody's complaining about it. And I would go, listen, heat wave, do you have AC in your car? Yes. Do you have AC in your house? Yes. Okay, then shut up and stop complaining, okay? Because there are other people in other countries where they have the same heat wave, but they don't have the AC, the luxury of AC in the car and the AC in the house. So what are you complaining about? Different perspective, right? So when I say the culture, it's consumerism is very heavy. So I think it's just kind of all together contributes to the mentality of If it's not this one, there's going to be another one. So there is lack of desire to invest into something for a little bit more prolonged time to see if you can truly make it work.
Would that mean then if the person isn't willing to invest enough to make it work, could that be a form of self-sabotage then?
Could be, could be. In some cases, for sure. Not always, though. Say it actually probably depends also on the age range. I'm noticing there are definitely different tendencies. So the younger ladies and gentlemen, maybe not as willing to invest a little bit more effort and a little bit more time because they grew up with access to quicker, faster, more available things than generations prior to them. So maybe the ones over 30, over 40, they also have now realized, and again, this is just observations, from my personal life, from working with people, and I have clients. My youngest is 22, my oldest is 83. So the whole spectrum. And those that are a little bit older, I think they're finally realizing that, hey, reality might be a little different to what I used to believe. We're supposed to get wiser with age. Some of us do, some of us don't, for sure. But it depends also on the age group, in my opinion.
I will agree. I think many factors contributed, and I say the age one is a big one, especially as we get older. I want to say the threshold for many people in general is probably the age of 40. I remember doing a research presentation where a lot of people found happiness in different ways after that age. We always thought that in our 20s, we're invincible, we're strong, we're our happiest. It turns out we actually are not because we're probably the most confused in who we want to become, where we want to work, and if we want to start a family or not. Unfortunately, for some people, that age of 40 may be too late for certain things. Let's say someone wants to start a family, it's on the later side. Let's say if someone wants to make a career shift to start a family, they got to find a partner and do that career shift. What I've noticed, and I'll get your input on this as well, is that when it comes to mastering what they want from themselves in the relationship, I see a lot of people struggle with that. To your earlier point, you ask them, okay, what is it that you want to give in this relationship? Well, Taryn, I don't know. Okay, what do you want from the person in the relationship? They come with a list so long that it goes from the house all the way to the next door neighbors down the street. And it's
Yep.
like, okay, you can have whatever it is you want. I remember a girl, she says, Taryn, I want a man with big hands. Okay, bigger the hands, the better, right? So I asked her, I was okay, a man with big hands, what does he like? What can you offer him? Why should he pick you? And I think that's where everything falls apart for a lot of people because they know what they want from the person, but when you ask them why would that person who they want would want them, they don't know. So when it comes to the mastery of themselves and of the relationship, how can we help those people who need it the most?
Oh, they need a lot of love and compassion, that's for sure. To help them go into dark corners of their own hearts and souls to figure out who they are. Most people don't know. And I was one of those people as well. And it took some time to arrive. But it's also as uncomfortable as it can be, the process of truly getting to know yourself, becoming as authentic as you can be, um, training yourself for the relationship, to be in the relationship essentially. Um, it's a very rewarding end result if you actually willing and able to go through that process. I don't think anybody can do it on their own, though. I don't know. And I'm curious about your opinion on this one, Train. Like, I know a lot of people, we are so lucky nowadays to have access to abundance of information. You can get any type of knowledge nowadays, right? It's like people come to me for coaching. They don't have to pay me for knowledge. I'm not selling knowledge. They can get that for free. There are amazing books, podcasts, YouTube channels, all kinds of things that you have access to. But for some reason, there's a lot of people that they get all of this theory in and they're still stuck. Why is that? Because we need accountability and safe space to get to know ourselves, because it's a little scary to really go into deep, deep layers of ourselves. Or we just don't know how to do it. So, but without it, I really don't like even people that I'm sure there are couples where it's a little bit more of a surface level relationship, but that's a different quality of relationship. I see people, for instance, living as roommates for years. It's transactional. They live in the same house, but there's no intimacy, there's no connection, there is no true sense of togetherness. It's just roommates situation. And I'm not here to condemn any of these dynamics. If it works mutually for both of them, as long as they are truthful about the fact that that's not really a fulfilling relationship, so be it. But everybody dreams about a beautiful love story, right? And that requires knowing yourself.
I work with people who, and we share this, who they struggle with their identity in a relationship, and I see that where the identity is that I'm this roommate with this person because that's the way I'm the most comfortable, even though the other person hates it.
Mhm.
Right. So when it comes to bridging that gap, that could be tough because what if they saw their parents operate as roommates? Right. I've worked with people that their mother and their father, they'd even sleep in the same room their entire childhood. So to them, that was their baseline.
Yes.
Husband, wife don't share the same room. Sure, we know they're intimate enough because they had two children, so they at least did it
At
twice.
least twice. That.
Right? In all those years, but there was no vacations together, there was no events, they didn't sleep in the same bedroom. So to your point, they grew up seeing their family as roommates. So when they go out in the world and they get their own relationship, they think it's the norm. And that's where it's truly unfortunate because there's like an identity crisis in their relationship because they think it's normal. Do you see some people struggling with figuring out who they actually want to be and how to show up in relationships?
Oh, all the time. All the time. Especially so when I start coaching somebody, one of the first things that we do is I ask them to define what is their relationship vision. And usually what do? They give me a laundry list, right? The one that you said that's long goes as long as from your door to the neighbor's house. So it's they list the traits of the person they would like to, they believe it would benefit them or the relationship somehow, but they don't have the vision. The vision goes way beyond just the characteristics of somebody. The vision goes beyond that, and it is more about like how do you want to feel in the relationship, what do you want to experience, how flexible are you, what are you willing to compromise on, what are you not willing to compromise on, are you able to set the boundaries, are you able to speak up when something makes you uncomfortable, right? This is the vision. So it's much more wholesome thing than just a list of things. This is why when people come on a date and they just, hopefully only mentally checking the boxes off. And I hear, especially ladies going all the time, he checks all of the boxes. I'm like, okay, are you attracted to him? Yeah. Like I've had women trying to, he looks good on paper, but there's no chemistry, and she's still trying to make it work because she comes with a list.
Could our preferences be our prison then?
Yes, I think there should be kind of multiple tiers. Like you should know your non-negotiables, and everything else should be flexible.
Oh, you're opening up a yes.
It's a big Pandora box, I know.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Absolutely, you're right.
It's and I'm speaking from personal experience, Reen. Like, I used to be a woman who would be extremely rigid, extremely opinionated. I had radical opinions coming out of my ears, okay? And I was a woman who would say, oh, if he doesn't accept me the way I am, that's his problem. That's his loss. That's how bad it was about a decade ago, okay? Thankfully, the life and the failed marriages and my own desire to grow humbled the heck out of me. But the partner that I'm with now, he's gonna call me out. He's gonna call me out. And I had to be okay with that. In no experience before that, I would allow a man to call me out on anything. Okay. So what does it mean? That means that I came into a relationship communicating what is non-negotiable for me. There are only like a few things, but everything else, we made a pact. We're staying flexible and we're seeing how we can meet each other in the middle that works for both. That's what I mean by being, kind of a multi-layer relationship approach. Know your non-negotiables, everything else. You should be willing to compromise and try it out.
How were you able to make that shift when, for so many people, it seems like it's a daunting task?
That's a good question. I mean, as far as how, uh, lots of, I was extremely stubborn in the beginning. I was trying to figure it all out on my own. I did not want to admit that, I did not want anybody to know that I was not happy. When I realized, okay, I need to change something, I was trying to do it like in secret by myself, and then I would be like, okay, ta-da, I'm all fixed. Well, that did not work. I had to reach out. I did some therapy on my own. I did energy healing. I did hypnotherapy. I did coaching myself. I've tried different ways, and so I had help. I reached out for help, but it was extremely difficult to accept help. For me, at least personally, it was extremely difficult. I think once I kind of had that momentum going and I started feeling the internal shift inside of me, like I stopped being as hyper vigilant as I used to be, as negative as I used to be. So when I started feeling a little bit more peace inside of me, that's when I realized I'm like, wait a second, I actually kind of enjoy this sense of peace inside because I never experienced peace before. Like my childhood was quite toxic. My early years I was very busy, being toxic myself. But when I started feeling the emotional shift inside of me, that's when I realized, oh my God, I gotta keep going because that's where it is. So the emotional baseline that we touched on at the very beginning, I think this is truly the pinnacle of it. Like once you learn how to regulate yourself, and this is only part of it, once you create an emotional baseline where you know when you are operating from a place of trauma or a place of fear instead of a place of peace and gratitude. And there's always something to be grateful for. We're not conditioned to be grateful for things we have in our life. We're conditioned to pay attention to what is missing. So most people live from place of lack, mentality of lack and scarcity. These are the people that come to me and is like, I don't know where to meet good women. I don't know where to meet good men. What is it? That is lack. You're focusing on the fact that there is not enough. There's like tons of single people out there, tons, right? So emotional baseline is essentially getting yourself to the point of emotionally being steady, regulated, peaceful, and then you're emitting literally a different vibrational signal out. So you will be attracting different types of experiences, different quality of people into your life. This is why I think this is where everything starts.
Could some of us be then experiencing a privileged perspective when it comes to dating?
You put it so kindly, from your perspective.
Well,
Uh,
I'm trying to be, Switzerland here. I'm trying to be neutral a little bit.
Okay, I appreciate it because okay, maybe I need to soften it up a little bit. Um, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because I think a lot of people come into a dating space with the attitude of entitlement. and I do see it a lot among women, at least here in the DMV area in the United States. This is just an observation, not a criticism. Again, I get to say that because I was that woman. So I get to say it. Okay, I was that woman and I'm not now. I did the work to get to the point that I'm not that woman anymore because it's not optimally healthy. It doesn't bring happiness or fulfillment in a relationship. It does not. It's a misconception for women, okay? Um, but yes, there are people who come in with the sense of entitlement, and I think relationship, a truly fulfilling relationship, is a privilege. That is the privilege. You have to earn it. If you have done nothing as far as personal development, personal expansion, understanding your own patterns, understanding where there you still may be carrying some trauma, if you have done no work to be a good, healthy partner for somebody, you don't deserve the relationship. Go do the work.
Don't deserve. That could be harsh for some people to hear,
It is. It is
right?
hard.
And I will say that I don't think everyone is entitled to a romantic relationship. And this is why I would say that. Because there's some people that unfortunately the amount of work that they need maybe has been neglected for so long that not only are they damaging themselves, if they were to get into relationships, they would damage that other person, then that other person goes out into the world and damages other people. So there's a chain reaction, right? So I
Exactly.
will agree with you there. When it comes to don't deserve, do you think that's hard for people to hear? If so, why?
It is hard to hear. It is hard to hear, and it's a very painful truth. But at the same time, at some point, we gotta start facing the truth, okay? Because if everybody who deserves and desires a relationship had the relationship, we would not be in this toxic dating landscape that we are in right now. But we are in it. There are so many single people out there who feel lonely, who feel miserable, and yet they continue being single, whether it's they're doing it, the wrong way, or maybe they are not really being proactive in something, whatever the reasons are. So when I say you don't deserve it, I'm talking about people who come into this space with that sense of entitlement, like accept me who I am right now. The ones that are not flexible, the ones that are not willing to respect the other. That's the people that I don't think they deserve to be in the relationship.
And those people are so loud about it too.
Usually, yeah. Usually, yeah. And these are also the type of people that cause harm to those who may be more humble and maybe not as outspoken about their own challenges. So, this is why, again, individual responsibility, your own emotional health, your own emotional baseline makes all the difference. Like, I host events for singles, okay? Let's say I have 50 people coming, and all kinds of people come to the event. And there are always people who truly struggle with just having a conversation or socially quite anxious, and it's difficult for them. Like they may not have learned the skill of socializing for one reason or the other, but some of them have been kind of traumatized in the dating world. I have guys tell me that they go, you know what? I give up. I can't. I've been on 5 dates in a couple months, and every single woman acted like I owe her something. It's like, why? I have guys telling me that they've taken women out and paid for everything, activities were covered, dinners were covered, and then when they brought up the fact that they would like to be exclusive, all of the sudden she goes, "Oh, I'm focusing on my career right now." It's like, what the hell? You were taken out for 3 months to dinners and activities. Never once you offered to pay for it, but now all of the sudden you want to focus on your career. So that's not dating, that's using the other person for your own entertainment. That's entitlement. That person should get the hell out of the dating space.
Let me use you before you use me.
No, I don't believe so.
I asked
It,
that question. Go ahead, Irina, go ahead.
I think, this could apply maybe for some other situations where people get like, if they try to attack somebody like emotionally, some of those people are usually the people that are afraid deep down there's a trauma over being attacked themselves. However, when it comes to specifically mentality of entitlement, allowing somebody to take you out to dinners and spend money, put effort into, when you know, because this woman knew she wasn't going to commit to this man, right? And yet she led him on, she let him pay. Why? Right? So in this case, it wasn't her being afraid to be used, it was her coming in with the sense of entitlement just because she's a woman. And as a woman, you still need to bring plentiful things to the table of the relationship. Just because you're pretty doesn't mean anything.
No more pretty privilege.
No. Mm-mm.
I know I'm making a little louder, but I asked that question when it comes to um the dating market because there was someone, and I shared this with you earlier today, where she didn't want to change. She knew what was going on. She didn't want to change, and she just decided that, well, if they're only going to stay for the sexual experience,
Mhm.
let me own it, right? So let me liberate that part of my area. So she was sleeping around and she was doing whatever that she was doing. I remember asking her a simple question. I was like, how do you think your children are going to view this situation? And her response, very fiery, was, well, they don't ever come over to my home. I was like, yes, you go to the motel down the street to do your thing and then you go home and we all hope you shower afterwards because this is the life that you're doing. And she was someone that before she started speaking to me a little bit about it, she had a therapist and her therapist was saying something similar. Her thing was she needed the attention. She needed it from what she was doing. She was bragging. I'm telling you, when she was on social media, she would say, I found the person I'm going to marry. 3 months later, scrub their social media. It's a different guy. 3 months after that, different guy. 6 months after the cat. And I share this because sometimes we get so caught up in the pursuit. I want, I want, I want. We don't ever see, okay, what is it that's going to actually make me get what I want, right? We're missing that piece because showing up is nice, but showing up equipped is even better. If I have a water leak and the plumber shows up with no tools, he's like, "Hey, Taryn, I'm here." I'm like, "Okay, where's
What are you gonna do about it?
yeah? What are you gonna do? But like you look nice, but my water is leaking." Right? So, what do you think are then maybe some of the gaps that people are just not understanding that they have to show up with the skills in order to even get to the door of what they want before walking through it?
In general, having to do work to get into a relationship is not normalized. Maybe it will take some time. Maybe at some point it will shift and it will be better. Just like the mental health has become a lot more the topic of the discussions, and it's become much more normalized to do therapy or to do coaching. There used to be the time where people would not even admit to doing therapy or coaching, things like that. So it hopefully will shift. Um, I want to actually, if you don't mind me, I want to comment on that story that you shared as far as the attention. And this is something that I've come to realize as a woman myself over years. We women need attention. We love attention. And this, it's almost like what I'm seeing, men tend to fall in love with the sense of peace that the woman can bring. We women, we fall in love with attention given to us. But when we don't know when to stop, kind of like what you're saying, I mean, I can get a lot of attention. If I doll up and go out, I can get a lot of attention, but I need to know what the boundaries are. If I have a man in my life, I'm not going to be getting dressed to get attention. That's disrespectful to him. Okay. The culture nowadays is to keep getting attention to validate, but not to get attention and know, okay, I like his attention. Maybe there is something, let me invest some effort and time into it. Let's see if we can make the relationship happen, right? So just kind of a conveyor of attention, and it's a never ending. Does that make sense? So there's nothing wrong with getting attention, but if you're getting it, well, I definitely don't think getting it through sleeping around is a way that is satisfying um, to a woman. Maybe it feels short-term satisfactory for her, but it's something that maybe you regret later. But attention is definitely very, very important for a woman. It just depends how much she feels she needs it and how she's getting it.
I think it's a currency that not a lot of people talk about. You hear so many people who step out of their relationship, like that's one of the reasons why he wasn't paying attention to me, she wasn't paying attention to me.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous because it's fleeting, right? Like you can log on to Instagram or wherever, you can get all this attention. Oh my God, I'm the greatest thing in the world. But what some people I think miss, and I've seen this, is that it overstates your value, and then you become confused because maybe you think you're more attractive than you are. Maybe you think you're more important than you are. There's a time when I was going to the gym and I had my long hair and I was getting abs and everything else. I thought I was catnip. I thought I was the sexiest thing in the world. Right? I'm just gonna be on. You're making me feel vulnerable today, so I'm gonna open up and I'm gonna share, right? So yeah, that was my time because in my 20s, I used struggled with dating. So when I was getting consistent attention in my 30s, I was feeling good. Now I didn't weaponize and abuse it, but I can see why some people were doing it because if you're that, let's say you're that overweight short kid in high school and in college and in university, and now that you worked on yourself and now you look like Brad Pitt or Denzel Washington, some people will say that, okay, I'm going to get what I can and as much of it, but they don't realize how negative of an impact that's going to have on our relationships. When it comes to that validation and that need for attention, what are the impacts that it can have on that person trying to find healthy relationships as they get older?
It's so important to know, like, what's the intention behind the attention that you are trying to get, right? I mean, I think it's natural to, as a single person, man or woman, to maybe dress up a little bit more impressive and to stand out of the crowd. Like that's natural to do. You know, if I'm home was if I'm in relationship, I have no problem going to the grocery store wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. But if I'm single, I may reconsider that. What if I run into some cute guy and, who knows what's going to happen? So I think it's just natural for humans, but the problem comes in when it becomes kind of a dopamine hit chase in a sense, and we don't know when to stop. Uh, and as far as getting older, we're supposed to get wiser with age. I did. I think I did. I believe I did. I did have a phase of trying to get a lot of attention, and but it still it wasn't really bringing what I thought it would be bringing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. When you look back on certain things like that, you're like, you thought it was going to create this. And when you didn't get what you thought it was going to create, you're like, oh, I feel stupid that I did that actually.
Oh yeah. There's plenty of things I feel stupid for. Like a whole list. But it's we live and we learn. The attention, the way many women try to get attention now is, in my opinion, quite detrimental to just collectively as a dating space and to their own, women's psyche. Because there's probably going to be the time when she's in her 40s or 50s and she doesn't look as good as she did and she's got a serious body count and she may regret that. And I'm not here to judge anybody, but it's just the reality is that the dating market value of a woman and the dating market value of a man um, changes with age. A man's dating market value increases. A woman's dating market value decreases with age. And it's hard for us women to kind of accept that. Even societally, aging is different for men and women outside even a romantic relationship. Like if a guy, a 50-year-old guy or 40-year-old guy has multiple ladies and plenty of attention, he's a hero, he's a stud. If a woman dates a younger guy, she's a cougar. We've got plenty of labels, right?
Yeah, yeah, society definitely does play a role in how men and women are viewed as we get older,
Yes.
and as well as biology, right? Because there's certain things that women, as they get older, they're less likely to do, such as, let's say, having kids, right?
Yes.
So a man would who wants to have a family, he may go for someone younger because of that reason. So he may not date within his age range. He may go to a 30-year-old or whomever, right? As well as men tend to earn more money as they get older.
Yes. The prime age doesn't align for men and women. So, and again, like knowing all of this and accepting it as truth would actually help people instead of just rejecting the truth and saying, "Oh, I can do whatever I want. I don't need a man. I can have a child when I'm 50." I mean, sure, by all means, if that's what you want to do, but be realistic.
I agree. I agree. You mostly work with men, so I'm going to ask you one final question, Irina, before I let you go. I want to give you three wishes for this question. If you had Aladdin's genie lamp, right, and all the men you came across, you said, "Here is your lamp." What are three things you think that they would wish for when it comes to a relationship, and why?
Ooh, what I think they would wish for, shoot, that's like an hour discussion. You want me to answer it quickly? I'm going to answer the question the best I can. However, I do want to preface it by saying that a lot of men don't know what they want. They think they do, but then I start breaking down the female psyche for them and the relationship dynamic, and they realize, no, they don't know what they want. Okay. So just to kind of put it out there, but just having worked with a lot of men, they would wish for intimacy. A lot of men struggle to admit that that is something, a big part that is missing. And if they are somehow not assertive enough and afraid to communicate their intention, their attraction clearly to a woman, which is, by the way, attractive to a woman. This is why women like the bad boys, quote unquote. Why? Because we're drawn to the masculine energy. He might be the biggest asshole on the block, but if he's coming off as assertive and masculine, oh, she's definitely going to be turned on. So if a man is not assertive enough and telling her, "I like you. I'd like to have a conversation with you. I up for it." So a lot of men don't do that because they're afraid. They think they may be perceived as they're harassing. Maybe they have been rejected in unkind way. Again, this is why individually it takes to make the collective, better. I know I sound like a broken record on this one, but they would wish for intimacy, in my opinion. They would wish for respect, and